Welcome to Inside ArtScroll, where the books that we read and the people that write them come to life. You know, sometimes in life, there's something we desperately need, a Yeshua, a salvation. And we daven, and we do all types of things, and we do it for a long period of time. And then it just doesn't happen. It doesn't come to fruition, and we give up. And we learn to live with the reality. That's what we tell ourselves, at least. And for many people, it was that way. Until Rosh Chodesh Adar Beis this past year, when something happened that changed the Jewish world and gave so many people hope that Yeshua could happen. And that was an incredible moment, the moment of Miracle Baby. When Rebbetzin Kushelevsky, 88 years old, had his very first child, a baby boy. That moment filled the Jewish world with hope. That moment filled the Jewish heart with an understanding that Hashem could do anything. And it's a pleasure and an honor to welcome to ArtScroll Studios Rabbi Yehoshua Frankenhuis, who came here all the way from Eretz Yisrael to share with us a little bit about this incredible book, the book Miracle Baby. Rabbi Yehoshua, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem. The privilege is mine to be here with the team at ArtScroll. Thank you so much for having me.
It's definitely a schus. Rabbi Yehoshua, you know, you've been close to the Rosh Yeshiva for almost 2 decades. You're the mashgiach in the yeshiva, in Rebbetzin Kushelevsky's yeshiva. You're a rav of a kehila in Beit Shemesh, Bnei Aliyah, and you're a busy man. Yet you found time in your schedule to write this book because clearly it was compelling to you. Can you do us a favor? Can you take us into the moment when the yeshiva, the Talmidim across the world, found out that after 88 years, the Rosh Yeshiva finally was a father?
Wow, that's a question.
Definitely.
To be honest, to do justice to this, I can't. It's like, we know, anyone who hasn't seen a Simchas Beis HaSheva back in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, Lo Yira Simcha Miyamav. Anyone who wasn't there and didn't experience it, it's almost impossible to describe it. What I can share with you is that special moment, that morning, when we all got to hear the exciting news, that moment was a life-changing moment for all of us. The simcha began then, and I think all the Talmidim around the world can say they're still living off that simcha.
Was there singing or dancing in the yeshiva? What happened? Was there shock?
So there was definitely a huge element of shock. People were like amazed. And I have to share with you, not everybody throughout the time that the Rosh Yeshiva was waiting for children believed that was going to happen.
Right.
And those people who perhaps didn't believe that the Yeshua was actually going to come, and then they saw it, they heard about it, they were really shocked. And singing and dancing, absolutely. When the Rosh Yeshiva arrived back, wow. That was a moment never to be forgotten.
You know, it's interesting in the book, you also describe the moment after the birth in the hospital of this incredible miracle. Everyone in the hospital, even the totally secular staff, realized this was something that was unparalleled, maybe since Avram Avinu and Sarah. What was happening in the hospital? It's so unique how the Rosh Yeshiva used the first few moments after becoming a father.
So the Rosh Yeshiva used those moments, those first moments, not for himself, but for others. Many people would have taken that special moment just to cherish the time with yourself, with the baby, but he dedicated those moments fully to giving people brachas, to giving people chizuk. The Rosh Yeshiva mentioned numerous times that he didn't see the birth of baby Eliyahu as a matana just for him, but actually as a gift for the entire generation. And you could see that throughout. If it was by the birth, as you were mentioning, yes, he was so selfless. You know, he was very tired. And he was in the highlight of his life in every sense. But he was giving over to others rather than to himself. But throughout that whole week, the Rosh Yeshiva was just giving and giving and giving. And those that know the Rosh Yeshiva, every moment is precious. If he can learn another shtickle Gemara, he's going to do that. but he was giving hours and hours just to be mechazek other Yidden.
Yeah, you describe it so beautifully in the book, just like the many facets of the Rosh Yeshiva, just constantly focusing on other people as opposed to himself. What I found particularly meaningful was that when the news broke across the world, the Talmidim literally felt that they had gotten a new baby brother. If the Rosh Yeshiva was their father, then this was a new baby brother. And you could talk about this, like Talmidim just they just got on a plane and they came to Eretz Yisrael. Like the yeshiva had to deal with like a whole influx of, it was almost like a yarchikala.
Absolutely. It was spontaneous, and lots of Talmidim, not just from around Eretz Yisrael, but from England, from America, South Africa, they just got on a plane and said, how can we miss our baby brother's bris? And they came there and they really felt this was a brother. At the time, there was even consideration that was being spoken about chartering a full plane from the UK. There were so many Talmidim who wanted to come. The Talmidim who were there were telling each other, this is a family simcha. You know, especially the Suda of the bris, which was, the closer Talmidim, the actual bris was, there was thousands and thousands of people, from people looking for Yeshuas and all kinds of other people. But the Suda was, much more the Talmidim and the people closer to the Rosh Yeshiva. It felt like, quite honestly, a family reunion.
That's so nice. That's amazing. And it was all around this incredible Kiddush Shem Shamayim that the Rebbetzin Kushelevsky brought to the world. And that's something that you keep coming back to over and over in the book. And it's a very compelling read. Shkaichi wrote it very, very well, just saying.
Thank you.
The fact that the Rosh Yeshiva keeps saying that this was not his gift, but it was a gift to all of Klal Yisrael. And to me, that's very inspiring, because I think that's why a lot of people just wanted to come to the Simcha, to be a part of every little part of the Simcha, because this experience, seeing something like that, it fills a person with hope, with emunah, with bitachon. So yashkarch to you for writing an opportunity and a vehicle for us to get that emunah and bitachon. At what point did it pop into your head that you should write a book? And why you? Sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's a great question. So to be honest, by the beginning, when a lot of people were coming to the Rosh Yeshiva with questions and with a deep desire to get chizuk from this story, the Rosh Yeshiva was giving a very lot of his time giving that over, and I was alongside him. I sat next to him and I was seeing what the Rosh Yeshiva was saying, and eventually the Rosh Yeshiva even gave over to me the task of, he said, there's a limit to how much I can do. I've got to go back to learning. And he felt that I had taken in enough of the hashkaf and the chizuk that I was able to give it over, and I gave it over to quite a lot of people afterwards. And when that happened, I felt like if I was zoicha to be alongside the Rosh Yeshiva by this very special time, and the Rosh Yeshiva has a feeling that I have taken in as a Talmud, I've taken in what he's giving over, and the Rosh Yeshiva gave so much of his time because he felt it was so important for Klal Yisrael to take chizuk from this story, then I felt that it was my duty, my obligation, but more than anything, my privilege to go and stand alongside with the Rosh Yeshiva in that mission and continue spreading the light this book spreads.
So you went over to him and you said, is it okay if I write a book about you and about the situation? How did that go?
So it was actually a lot more than that. It wasn't just, can I write about you, but the Rosh Yeshiva actually dedicated many hours sitting with me, reviewing particular chapters, reviewing the entire chapter, making changes, adding things. He actually gave a huge amount of time for it. And likewise, the Rabbitson, she really gave many, many hours, and she doesn't have that many hours because she's juggling
a baby,
a yeshiva, and so many other things. She's busy with shidduchim and you name it. Read the book, you'll get the tip of the iceberg, as they say. How did she find the time for it? I don't know, but she did, and it was it was very much a project done together.
It's interesting you say this because growing up all the years, I didn't learn by Tzvi, but the word on the street for us Yeshiva Bachram and Young Light was that Reb Tzvi is he's the quintessential masmid. He's always learning. I know you read in the book, on a 12-hour flight, he never took his head out of his Gemara, which, by the way, turned into a donation, but you got to read the book to know that. So it's so fascinating to me that the yeshiva spent so much time with you reviewing the book and giving chizuk to other people, which on some level cuts into his learning. And I guess that's a cheshbon that he made, that's a calculation. If I have this opportunity, I need to use it. Has he shared that sentiment with you?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What was very striking, though, was he gave huge amounts of hours, but very, very calculated. I'll give you just as an example. A lot of media wanted to interview within that week, those 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and he was willing to do it with many of the newspapers and magazines and different kavim, different lines. He did that, but he always asked beforehand, who is it? What do they want it for? And whenever it was, forget something less positive, whenever it was just someone coming because it's an interesting story,
Sensation.
Exactly, nice coverage, he wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't do it. It was very much making a Kiddush Hashem and being Mechazek Klal Yisrael.
What happened in Israel? Did the secular press pick up on this nace? Did they turn it? Was it like a great Kiddush Shamayim? What happened? Do you know?
So it spread throughout Eretz Yisrael, the Haredi press, the secular press, and actually throughout the world, even the non-Jewish world, there were quite a few who found it fascinating and wrote about it.
Can you just give us a glimpse? I know you've been with Rashi for so many years, but there's decades and decades of incredible amelis batayr, toiling and learning. Tell us a little bit about the hasmada. I know you read in the book about the Rashiva's intense hasmada and diligence and non-stop learning.
Okay, so as you said, yes, there's quite a bit about that dotted throughout the book. But it's incredible to live through it, to see what it means to be a masmid on that level. Every Talmud who was in the yeshiva will just say something as simple as Havdalah. Havdalah Motzei Shabbos, the Rosh Yeshiva would always do Havdalah downstairs for his Talmidim, his children, his kinderlach. Mm-hmm. And he did a nice, slow, beautiful Havdalah, the way you're supposed to take Shabbos out. Sing afterwards the Havdalah songs. But as he's finishing the song, he's already running, it's Seder, grabbing his Gemara and getting going. It's not about the big things, it's not about the stories which we have in there about a half a year of tiny stibur or various other beautiful stories, but it's what the Talmidim really experienced in all those small moments. There was never a moment which was too small to chaparein.
And that's how you become a Gadol, from those small moments.
Very much.
Big people focus on the small things, like they say. You know what else was really interesting to me? The Rosh Yeshiva was kind of like the figurehead, and his picture's on the front, and as is baby Eliyahu. Although his face is very zee, so you'll see a lot of great pictures in the book. But there's a whole other side to the story, and that's the story of the Rabbitson, which is written very beautifully in here. Give us a taste of the Rabbitson's journey and meeting the Rosh Yeshiva and eventually being part of this incredible, amazing Nes and Kiddush Shem Shemayim.
Okay, so as you correctly said, justice will only be done by reading the book, and even that, I have to say, it's only touching on a little bit of what actually is going on over there. But the Rabbitson actually had a deep she'ifa to marry a Talmud Chacham. Now, she ended off hitting the jackpot, getting married to the Rosh Yeshiva, but her she'ifa wasn't getting married to anyone famous or well-known. Her she'ifa was wanting getting married to a Talmud Chacham who sits and learns Torah all day. A lot of us have dreams. We want to reach heights. And it remains dreams. By her, there was no such thing. She, in every ruchnius and gashmius way, made it her life mission. She was davening to Hashem, going to Kvarim, if it was the Panovich Rav. Amazing how she went to the Panovich Rav and said, we all know how the Panovich Rav stood there by the mountain and spoke about doing the impossible. And that's what happened. She said, Ponovitcherov, go and daven for me. Everyone laughed at you when you were trying to do the impossible, and the impossible happened. And she, the Rabbitson, was saying, I want the same.
And she was so practical. If you look in the book, there's a really cute picture of her calendar.
Wow.
Talk about that. That's so amazing.
It was so real by her that she actually, we speak about how she was, as she calls it, pumped up with emunah, and she had jotted into her calendar on Tu B'Av, which is a very mesugel day for getting married, Be'ezras Hashem Chasna.
Which is this way before the whole shidduch with Rabbitson was suggested.
Before. Yeah. It was less than 2 weeks from when, it was suggested until they were married. And this was way before. By her, it was real. We sometimes believe, but yeah, it can happen. To take a pen and write, that shows you're really holding.
For sure. It's real bitachon, it's real trust, it's real confidence. Were you by the wedding of the chasana of the yeshiva and the Rebbetzin?
I was. It was also an incredible moment. If you're bringing that up, people for quite a while wanted to see pictures of the wedding. There was maybe one picture which went out round and about. And when we brought out this book, the Rabbitson graciously took out the hard drive, which no one had ever seen before, gave the pictures, and those are the pictures which are in the book. So it's, got something very special over there.
This is something that you discussed, which to me was a real eye-opener. Sometimes in life, we daven, and then the Yeshua comes. We breathe a sigh of relief. Baruch Hashem, finally it came. It took a lot of years, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we look at those years, or you look at those months, or that time period as, it was a necessary evil to get to that point. But what I realized in reading the book, and you talk about this in a very nice way, is that yeshiva did not view 60 plus years of davening for a child as a necessary evil. He viewed it very differently. How did he view it?
So I actually find this very point the biggest chizuk of the story. The fact that he had a baby was a tremendous chizuk. But the fact that the Rosh Yeshiva could say that I see all those 65 years of waiting as a gift from Hashem. 65 years of waiting as a gift from Hashem. And embrace it. And say, that's what built my ruchnius. That's what brought me close to Hashem. That's incredible. Of course, that comes together with all those years of seeing the Rosh Yeshiva actually holding on tight. Seeing the Rosh Yeshiva in all those years beforehand, actually believing, asking people for brachas, for Zer Shel Kayama. After every Yom Tov davening and various other occasions, singing Zer Shel Kayama. Many people would be saying like, hello, move on. But he actually believed it and lived it. And then to say all those years was a gift.
It's very special. I'll tell you something fascinating. I read that there's one chapter right in the beginning of the book where the Rabbitson speaks about how many tefillahs were davened for this child. El Hanar has a hispalelti. Share with us that concept, because I think it's a very, very, very special concept. What's the word? What's the Yiddish term that they refer to for this child? Translate.
So this is one of those things which is very difficult to translate because Yiddish captures the essence very well. But perhaps I'll just give an outline of what it means. Everybody in life has their struggles. Sometimes a person reaches the Yehoshua eventually and they think, well, all those years were wasted. I got my shidduch, I got my shidduch. A few years late, and the shidduch is the same shidduch. Rav Pinkus, he has a arichas about it. We can't cover the whole piece, but he brings from the story with Shmuel, where basically Hannah realized she was going to lose a child. And Eli offered her, I'll give you another child even greater. And she wasn't willing to go for it, even though a greater tzaddik, what could be better? And why? What was the reason? Because El Hanar has a spirality, because I davened for this child. It doesn't seem to answer the big question, why are you not willing to have a different child who's greater? Explains Rav Pinkus, she was saying something very profound. If you have a Yeshua which you were waiting for a long time, and finally you have in your hand that baby, that shidduch, that nachas, or whatever else it is, it's not the same child, it's not the same shidduch, it's not the same Yeshua, it's something else. It's a oiskebet and a kind. And of course that's what Hannah was saying. You might give me another child who will be better and greater and on a higher
chacham and whatever.
Absolutely. It still won't replace this child, because this is the oiskebet and a kind. This is the child which I've been davening for. It's a child entrenched with tefillah, and nothing can replace that. And of course this is baby Eliyahu. Of course it's a tremendous Yeshua, but at the same time it's our oiskebet and a kind. Of course the message for all of Klal Yisrael at this stage, who everyone has their private things they're waiting for, challenges and Yeshuas they're waiting for, and of course Klal Yisrael as a whole are waiting for so many Yeshuas. When we do get to the Yeshua, it's not just waste of time. It's a build-up to having a oiskebet and a Yeshua. That's
so mechazik, that gives so much strength. When I read it, I shared it. I shared the different chizuk with a lot of, with a broader audience, and a random Yiddish mama reached out to me, who has a daughter who's been going through a very difficult and deep nisayon for many years. And sometimes like, for what? She said when she heard this, that this child is an oiskebet in her child, it filled her with so much chizuk, because she realized that every day where she struggles, and every tear that she cries, and every kapitel of tehillim that she says for this child is investing. And it gave her a lot of hope. It filled her with a tikva, a certain understanding that this child will be okay, and they won't just be okay, they're going to be amazing. They're going to be gevaldig, maybe better than the rest of my children. So you don't realize, you write a book, and then the impact and effect travels very far. And so Yasher Koach for putting that together and for sharing it, because it was a mechazik me. I shared that chizuk further, and that's what's so beautiful about a book. A person picks up a book, they read a book, and they could share it further, they could share the story further. So Rabbi said, buy the book, and you'll get the chizuk, and obviously the chizuk goes further as well. As someone who's known Reb Tzvi for a long time, what's really interesting about this book is you only have a little tiny snapshot of the life of a Gadol. That's really what it is. And it's interesting because we don't usually write Gedolim books about people while they're alive. We wait till Achar Me'ah Ve'esrim, Acharei Mos Kedoshim, and then we write about them. But it's so interesting to learn a little bit about his earlier years, about his incredible hasmara and his due diligence and the places that he visited. There's one thing which jumps out at me, I might have shows if you don't mind, even though you should still buy the book. And that's what happened to him when he first moved, I think it was to France, and he couldn't sleep for 3 nights in a row. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah,
share that story. It's amazing.
Wow. So it just brings out how Rosh Yeshiva through and through is kedusha. He arrived in the apartment he was supposed to be staying in, and
this was in France. It was in France.
Yes.
Okay.
And he went to rest. He went to sleep, and wasn't falling asleep. Okay, it happens to all of us.
Right. It's new surroundings. Right.
Okay. So said that one night, but it happened again and again. It was repeating itself, and the Rosh Yeshiva actually made the people go and check the entire house. He said, I feel there's something not Kodesh, I feel there's something Tameh. And people checked the house, from top to bottom, and they couldn't find anything there. So they were saying, Rosh Yeshiva, Tazov, you're not falling asleep because you're not falling asleep. But it wasn't Mavata, and he made them search again until eventually they found somewhere within that house Tzelem. They removed the Tzelem, and he felt, right away he was able to fall asleep without any problems.
Is that a surprising story for you as someone who knows Rosh Yeshiva, or it's?
Absolutely not.
Amazing.
Because I see it, I've seen it numerous times. Again, it's an inspiring story, but the Rosh Yeshiva sees on different Talmidim things which, we as staff in the yeshiva don't see, and we're wondering how do you know that? And it seems to be exactly the opposite to the Metzias, and then, a few weeks later we get to see that he was so super right, he was so target. This isn't something which happened once or twice. This happens all the time. It happened throughout the years, and it keeps on happening ad hayom hazeh. if it's in the yeshiva, and we see it, the Rosh Yeshiva has a particular insight into many, many areas. We saw it during COVID. There were many surprises during COVID. Not by Tzvi. He knew what was going to happen. Everyone was sure there was going to be herd immunity, and he said, it's all going to stay the same. And that's what happened. And various, yes, the answer is it doesn't surprise me the slightest.
Have you ever held baby Eliyahu?
Plenty of times.
Fantastic. What does that feel like?
It feels amazing, but nothing like standing on the side and seeing the Rosh Yeshiva play with his baby Eliyahu and his face filling with simcha like we've never seen it before.
And he's a person who expresses his simcha. It's not like this is a new sentiment.
Yeah, it's when I'm sitting by the Rosh Yeshiva, if it's we're talking and learning, if we're working through in yeshiva, and and he's got his baby, his ben b'chor next to him, and he turns around and he sees the baby playing, and he just smiles at the baby, and the baby smiles back. Your heart melts, your eyes begin tearing. It's incredible.
Wow, that's very special. As a Talmud, or as Talmidim of great people, those who have this list to have it, we all have our moments which we remember about the Rosh Yeshiva. Is there a particular story or something, personal moment about your journey with the Rosh Yeshiva that you would want to share? Maybe even something that's not in the book. So this could be the sneak preview on maybe volume 2.
Wow. Okay, so you're getting me a little bit on the spot.
That's correct.
I will share one story. With its simplicity, it's truly amazing. It gave me a little bit of a view into how the Rosh Yeshiva cares and has chokhmah into each and every Talmud. When the Rosh Yeshiva lost his first Rabbitson, it was a tremendously sad moment. Every time a person loses his spouse, it's a sad moment. But if you take into account that he was waiting to have children, he was still desperate to have children, and he was left basically alone in the world, his closest relatives being his siblings. So that was that was a very sad moment, and of course every Talmud goes and calls the Rosh Yeshiva to be Menachem Avol during the Shiva, after the Shiva, whatever it might be. I at that time was actually dating, and I got engaged basically at the time when the Rosh Yeshiva lost his Rabbitson. So I kind of had to make a phone call of Nichma Veilim, but then also let the Rosh Yeshiva know that I was a chassan. How do you do that?
Right.
Not a moment I think anyone would envy.
Correct.
So the first level of Gadlus was when I called the Rosh Yeshiva. It was just after the Shiva. He took the nechama and put the phone down. I don't know, but I'm assuming he knew or he could sense something and just cut it short for me. The Rosh Yeshiva, afterwards, it was for Pesach, he came to England, to Manchester, and of course as a Talmud who was living at the time in Manchester, I came in, and he was in a particular house of a relative, and the room was full of Talmidim, and I came in a little bit embarrassed, timid. Yeah, I'm a chassan, everyone knows I'm a chassan. I couldn't even break the news to the Rosh Yeshiva after it happened. Hello, what's going to be? And I came in, and I stood at the back, let's keep out of, the spotlight. And the Rosh Yeshiva gave me a massive smile. Again, I'm one of 100 all the way at the back. A massive smile. I said, oh, Mazel Tov. And, totally forgetting about his tzar, making sure one Talmud isn't going to feel awkward even for one moment.
And you didn't even have to tell him. In other words, he acknowledged that he knew, and he's excited, and you're okay.
Yeah, and twice saved me any uncomfortable moments. And if you take into account the amount of Talmidim he has, that's remarkable.
That's godless. That's greatness. The book, Miracle Baby, you should buy it, you should read it, you should get chizuk. Rabbi Yehoshua, thank you for sharing this chizuk with the greater tzibur, taking your experiences and putting them into this phenomenal, amazing book. You should have a lot of atzlacha and siyata d'shmaya, mechayel el chayil. And thank you so much for making the long trip all the way here. I'm confident that people that watch this interview are going to be very inspired by the book. And thank you for the gift of Klal Yisrael.
Thank you for having me and spreading the light further.